that's what the question would be, what does the warranty consist of? Do we have to wait until that time frame elapses before we get paid our remaining money? Or we'd get paid now and then
You get paid.
2 years, an extended warranty for 2 more years?
We release retainage, and then what happens is it's just, if something that's determined, if something in the roadway fails that's determined to be due to compaction.
And that would be at your discretion.
Then we would talk to you and get it fixed.
It's due to workmanship.
Yeah, but that's impossible. It's already been a year. Everybody knows once you go through a freeze and thaw period, any kind of settlement you might have at all, it's going
To be honest with you,
obvious.
the settlement is not what we're talking about.
I understand
If it
that.
settles, that has nothing to do with the compaction of the asphalt, which is what we're talking about. That's a separate issue. So I don't know if that's what the highway commissioners,
Yeah.
superintendent,
Just
whatever.
to clarify, compaction tests were done on the trenches during the water main.
The trenches,
They
yeah.
all passed.
Right.
So you met those standards, and it's obvious because the road hasn't, you don't have gullies in the road where the
The road
trenches
hasn't
are.
failed it.
But there's other trenches within the roadway where there was no compaction done.
Those are not your trenches, so we
Right,
understand that.
but are we going to be exonerated from those areas if there's settlement?
It's, like I said, you're off by 2%, 3/100ths of an inch. So nobody's gonna even see that with their eyes. So I don't know what the highway commissioner's determination of a failure over a 2% compaction difference is. But, you know, through you, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that we have the engineers fill out the pay rec, submit it. It has to get signed by the town administrator. If we sign it, your actions after that would be with the town for not finalizing your contract.
Okay.
Because, in my opinion, you've met all of our requirements. We were happy with a 3-year warranty. We all voted on that previously, I believe,
we did.
to move it forward. So that would be my recommendation. If we could get the pay rec, signed off by the engineers to move forward in that respect.
And that 3 years would start from September 17th of
From when it was-
2021, when we received our substantial completion?
That,
It would be when, or my recommendation would be when, we're talking about extended warranty on the final paving. So
Right.
August of 2022 is when the final paving was done.
Okay, so it'd be August of
Just on the
2024 that our warranty
you've got just
would be
under
for.
2 years.
In order to process that change, that pay request, we would need a change order signed by the town.
Right.
Just to let you know.
Right, so whatever we need the pay rec signed, and then the balancing change order in order to close it out. Because I don't think it's fair to Mr. Halleck that we've been holding off and not closing out his project. And if the town wants to come up with a bond and they want to contract your services to come up with parameters that would show that it was due to a failure of 2% of compaction, feel free to sign that with them, but that's outside of our scope too, so.
Right. So, are you putting that in the form of a motion? Or,
You don't need a motion to do any of that. If this
No,
is standard
just-
practice,
yeah.
they submit the,
Right.
they submit the
So,
change order,
yeah.
they submit the request. We'll vote on the change order when we receive it. I mean, we're not gonna vote on a balancing change order at this point until we get it.
right,
So
okay, that's,
I'm just requesting that we move forward
and if we can,
with the normal process. If it gets held up after our board, that's on.
so, yeah, we can work out if we need to have a meeting to take care of that.
We did request that the selectmen and the town administrator come
Right,
so that we can have this discussion and get this finalized.
yes, and there was it's somewhere in there.
Decline.
They declined. We received a email on Tuesday declining attendance tonight. So we're going to move the paperwork forward. And
We don't have control over the final signature, which is outside of ours.
Go ask her to open a meeting.
What's that?
You could go ask them at one of their open meetings.
Yeah, that's,
I think if I could ask them, they'd be here. You know what
No,
I
we
mean?
mean, you,
I would consider it a waste of time.
yeah. Okay,
It seems like town politics
But
more
it
than
would be on
anything.
record
it is,
Pardon?
it's
But it
on
would
record
be
now.
on their record.
It's on record now,
with us.
Yeah.
but that's with the town. Okay, so process the pay rec and we'll move it forward.
We
that.
will come,
The
we
closing
will
change
come in
order.
and sign it as soon as it hits the office, so you're not waiting.
Thank you.
that's what you need from us on this topic.
Yeah, I mean, you're the next 3 lines on our agenda, so,
I'm good on this one.
huh?
I think I'm good here.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll move it, we're gonna move it forward.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Bob.
For coming in.
Sorry about that,
Sorry for
Tom.
the delay and the headaches on this, but.
I even fell in that trench. I even fell in that trench. I tripped and fell.
So now a more fun one.
Okay. Potash Brook, Jesse Road.
So Jeff Faulkner from Ty and Bond again, and my
Paul.
colleague.
Paul Smith from Ty and Bond.
So you had us prepare a draft report relative to the Potash Brook Sewer Interceptor, which has been experiencing high flows, particularly with one sanitary sewer overflow in recent time. Paul led that meeting, and I'll let him take it from here.
Killed some trees.
Yeah, I didn't know,
I read it. I read the first part, the report up to your recommendation.
all right.
And actually, there is a large copy of these brown prints in the office. He left it with us last, when we had the meeting out. We walked the easement and, so there is a large size copy of this in the office.
So I previously met with Scott and George about a month ago to go through the background on this job. I'll try to give you the abridged version, ask questions at any point, just try to walk you through what we did here, where we're at and where we're recommending to go with this. As Jeff said, there's been half a dozen sewer overflows relating to Potash Brook Interceptor in the last 10, 12 years or so. So we were tasked with looking at the hydraulics of that interceptor. To do that, you essentially, we created a static model Excel-based spreadsheet where we're looking at, I'm gonna explain this clearly in Appendix C. What we have is basically your manhole-to-manhole sections of that interceptor. So the first spreadsheet with green, there you go. So what we have for information, as part of our SSES back in 2018, we actually had a meter in the interceptor, so that's the best data we got. All right? This first spreadsheet, we basically took your as-builts and went manhole to manhole with your invert elevations. And we're using the Manning's equation, which is basically going to give you your hydraulic capacity of that pipeline. It's based on your material, your slope, and your diameter. All right? Steeper the pipe, bigger the pipe, the more flow you're going to get through. All right? During dry weather, you'll see under this column that says average daily flow, 0.49. That's from your meter. In 2018, that was your dry weather average daily flow through that interceptor. And what that's telling you, all the stuff that's highlighted in green, you have sufficient capacity. You see, none of those are above 50%. All right? You flip over a couple pages to Appendix D. Now we have a wet weather event. All right? This was the best rain event we had during that metering period in the spring of 2018. All right, what it's showing you, we had a 1.4 MGD rain event under the average daily flow. Everyone see that, 1.4?
Yep.
All right. So now it's showing what I call in the report, section 1, section 2, and section 3. Section 1 being the top
Red area.
red area, section 2 being the more orange colored, that's in the 80% full, and then the bottom 3 sections that are in 90%. Right. In the report, I call those section 1, 2, and 3. All right. The top section is the most critical section because they're exceeding 100%. Now, this rain event did not actually cause an SSO, but it was pretty darn close, all right?
The manhole was probably full, it just
Yeah,
didn't
so
bubble through the
what
cover.
this isn't gonna capture is as those manholes start to fill up, you're gonna start to put a little bit of pressure on that gravity pipe. You're gonna get a little bit more than what the equation's showing. The equation is for gravity flow. You start to become a pressure pipe at that point.
Pressure.
Very low pressure, but you're gonna move more water. All right? So what this is telling us is, you know, we got a problem there. This rain event in the report, early on in the report, page 4, I summarize the 6 SSO events. What, yep,
Table 1.
what the intensity was, how much rain happened, and then down below, we've got the metered event that we're basing our capacity analysis on. The big thing to look at is that rainfall intensity. All right, the rainfall intensity of that event, which was only 0.162 inches per hour, almost caused an SSO. It mirrors the 2 that were SSO events that you had in the wintertime.
Christmas, yep, Christmas.
But what's not captured there is how much snow melt, direct inflow contributed to that SSO. So this number really fails in comparison when you start looking at the March and August, September events. But it was close to causing an SSO. So what that's telling us is, you know, we got a problem here, especially in that north, you know, most upstream part. After we looked at wet weather, we started looking at possible remedies to the situation. So the very next spreadsheet, if you go back to, yep, so Appendix E. What we've done here is you notice that we're still red, but we're less than 100%. Highlighted in yellow, what we've done is, in this scenario, we're installing cured-in-place pipeliners. All right? What that does is restricts the diameter on about a ½ inch or so to get the liner in, but it's a smoother pipe, so it actually counterintuitively increases the capacity of the pipe because it's a smoother pipe. But it doesn't increase it, in this case, enough to make it worth the town's while, especially in that most upstream section, because you're only dropping about 8 percentage points in terms of overall capacity that you're freeing up. Does everyone follow that? All right. So then Appendix F, we looked at, all right, what if we throw a 15-inch pipe in here instead? What do we get? And we get, you know, significant improvements. Downstream of that first section, you're sub 70% everywhere. Well, you were right around 70 at the lowest end. But if you're paying to put a 15-inch pipe in, it's not significantly more expensive to go to 18 because the material cost 15 to 18 on PVC is not significant. The bulk of
Estimation is the cost.
Exactly. So the next spreadsheet would be what's 18 get you? And 18 gets you a much better situation.
Not even 50% of the, just barely 50% of the pipe.
So when we were here, when we were here about a month ago, the concept of, the focus was really on the most upstream portion and possibly putting in a wet weather overflow parallel sewer. It's a good idea. It can serve to address the upstream portion. But what I'm concerned about is that upstream portion right now is its capacity is 1.4 MGD. It's essentially throttling back what downstream can see right now. And if we go and replace upstream with an 18-inch pipe, downstream is now going to see, if we put a 2 MGD capacity pipe upstream, downstream is now going to see 2 MGD. It's never seen it before. And we got to make sure that we don't solve one problem just to create the same problem
Just push it
in
further
another
down the
spot.
line.
All right? So, right now, how this report reads is, we have what I'll call preliminary recommendations at the end, which is 18-inch PVC pipe on the upper stretches. Downstream, the last 3 sections of pipe before you go to George Street. All right? Those last 3 red pipes in the spreadsheet. That AC pipe goes behind houses. It's in between, it's in an easement. It's in a spot that's gonna be tough to get to if you ever have an overflow or breakage.
And those are 90-degree bends in the pipe,
Yes,
too.
it's, I question why it was installed like that. There might be ledge in the road and they said this is easier to go through. The houses weren't there, I don't know. But I think it would be worthwhile to look at extending the sewer up First Avenue to George and getting it out of that easement. Whether you rehabilitate that one afterwards or decommission it or leave them both there, it's something that should be looked at. And then, right now, it reads that middle section to cure and place pipeline it, but that only gets you to about 75%. It's still not the best situation. Where this needs to go next, if this evolves into a design and improvements to the interceptor, is all this is based on meter data that we have from 2018. We need to base it off of a 5-year storm event per DEP guidelines. All right. So that really wasn't the scope of this, but it needs to be double checked if this thing advances any further to see, like where we're saying CIPP line. What does that look like in a 5-year storm event? What that takes on our end is going through and digesting all of the data that we had from 2018 and trying to capture the intensity of that rain event and how does that translate into a higher flow through that interceptor. All right. So that's something we'd want to look at early on in design if this does manifest itself into a design contract, just to really confirm scope, if that makes sense.
And for reference, the upper section is Progress Street down to the easement and halfway down the easement.
Oh, so we're off of West Main Street.
It's
We're not on the West Main.
So, no, so
Just-
this last map, I think, highlights,
Yeah,
it's the very last
colors.
page.
Yeah, colors.
very last page.
Yep, so these color codes mirror the wet weather spreadsheet. All right, so there's been a lot of work in the last 20 years on West Main Street, because there used to be a siphon that went under a culvert.
Right.
Now the pipe goes above it. This last segment is a problem segment, the last segment on West Main Street. It's the only segment that has not been relayed.
Oh, just that short piece.
Yep.
That little green,
Progress.
that little green section.
Yeah. Up to Mason Road.
Yep, all right, and then down through the easement, into, there's a new house down there, he actually just
Yeah, that's-
just paved his driveway.
If you walk the easement, halfway down the easement, there's a rise and there's a manhole
Yep,
up on that rise. If you back up just a little bit, it's off in the bushes, there's a pile of scrap metal next to it that somebody dumped. But it's in the briars. Took a while, actually, Timmy had to come down and show us where it was. That's where the that red area ends.
So my question is that siphon was eliminated when they did that construction job several years ago?
Yeah, so on the back end of these ones that are colored, I included it in the packet. You can see, here's how it used to be.
Yeah, okay, that's what it was
So
like.
they went over it. I
They
mean,
did go over it.
it's sitting right on the
Okay,
culvert.
yeah, all right, yeah.
All right, but they, in all this work, for whatever reason, they didn't address that last, because it was actually two contracts, separate years. Here's the second one. You can see they didn't address that last section before Progress Avenue, for whatever reason. Maybe they knew that the slope going down Progress Avenue was still gonna be a restriction, so it really didn't matter.
So that, yeah, well, that one section on West Main Street and Progress. And in the middle area is the yellow, the section 2, and then section 3 is the end. Again, why it goes by though, behind those houses. 2 of those houses that it goes behind are abandoned. They're all grown in, as one of them is, got vines and stuff growing through
The house on Schofield
the
Ave,
porch.
he's the most vulnerable one because the manhole is right in his backyard, and that house is still occupied.
Right.
Yeah, so when, in this spreadsheet where I talk about 18-inch replacement, my thought process, I don't want it to be misconstrued, my thought process is not to replace this red line in kind. It would be to evaluate extending this sewer up to George Street.
That's what I would do, first,
Yes.
straight down.
And- yep.
Is there any connections?
There's probably house connections but I look at this as long as, I'd want a CCTV the entirety. That was part of our scope. Getting rid of debris right now is very problematic with Webster and what's going on in Woonsocket. So once we saw that this is not an O&M problem, this is a hydraulics and capacity problem, we punted on that. That was part of our contract. We don't anticipate using that budget. But I would like, if this goes into a design, to CCTV all of this to make sure that we don't have cracked pipe, other stuff that needs rehabilitation, because it's a very important pipe for the town. And I look at this as install new sewer to George Street. If this is in good condition, line it afterwards and keep it.
Just leave the customers on the.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. One of the other problems is that, like, this first section, it's uniform slope throughout, so trying to, oftentimes when you relay sewer, if you have, it may be inconsistent from section to section, so you could rob Peter to pay Paul as you lay in the sewer to try to pick up capacity. The only spot we can increase the slope is that last section starts to dive. We could go one manhole more and try to improve the slope, just carry that gain all the way back upstream to try to just improve capacity a little bit.
What's the feeling on after manhole 270, when you go across Chase Ave and go down through the parking lot? Any survey on that work down in there?
I don't know anything about that part of the job yet. All I know is Scott told me that there was a SSO there years ago. And,
No,
George, sorry.
George.
And that some work has been done and there's been no problem
On the
since.
shop corner, you did something years ago, remember, they raised it, they did some digging there.
I think
in
they
the
just fixed that
parking
one
lot.
section there, I
If I
can't
just
remember.
question, if you're at this extent, you only have 300 yards before you're through the mill yard to the
I
trunk
believe
line.
there's some bends in there too that are
There's a lot
very.
of offsets beyond that point.
Yeah,
I was private property.
I thought once to go through Fairview and straight down and find a way to cut, work across, but it borders our station
Okay.
on our side.
Well, I mean, big picture here, it's, you know, I want to make sure if this does manifest itself into an interceptor capacity project, that we're going to have a whole interceptor approach and make sure that we're confident that we're not just migrating a problem. All right?
Yeah, just move it down the line.
No, I mean, what good
Get it
does
off
that
West
do?
Main
You guys
Street,
spend a
put
few
it on
million bucks
Fairview.
and you still have a
Put
problem.
it into the mill parking lot. You know?
But
Like I say, it
Put it in French River.
was private property.
It'll give them fertilizer for their crops. Yeah.
So the report right now, I priced the improvements as specified here, which would be overflow sewer, section 1, the recommendations part spells it out. Lining section 2,
Page 10.
thank you, Scott.
Like I said, I read it over the weekend. I think it was Sunday when I was
Yeah, so
from the fair.
And I caution that I want to call these like preliminary recommendations. Anything we do, I think we need to be backing that up into the 5-year storm to ultimately see what the overall recommendation should be to make sure we're not pushing a problem downstream. But section 1 would be 1,500 feet of 18-inch pipe. Whether that's a parallel pipe or replacing kind, I think is part of our job to evaluate that, to make a recommendation on what makes the most sense. If we go and CCTV this pipe and it's, cracked at midnight and it doesn't look like it's got a tremendous amount of life left in it, then we'll have to make a decision. Do we replace it in kind, or do we rehab it and put a larger pipe in? To me, that's part of the design process.
I would say one of my concerns about paralleling is half of our issue is I. And now you've just got
You just doubled
two
your
pipes, and now
Yeah.
you've got possibility for
I&I
leaks in both.
potential.
So,
But typically, I replace.
that's what I was gonna say. I would-
But it was brought up at the meeting. I don't think it's
It's a good concept to get you through a problem to buy you time, but I think the real solution is just to replace it with the proper size and decommission the existing.
I tend to agree.
Just because you've got more issues, more areas to add I&I, more
if-
problems to fix.
If that pipe got incrementally larger moving downstream and we were confident that downstream was no problem, then maybe that is a solution that,
Right, 'cause you're just trying to Band-Aid a small section.
yep,
As opposed to fix the problem
Yeah.
correctly. But like I said, it's a good concept. It's just, I think you're adding to our problem,
Yes.
kicking the can down the road.
yeah, and I went out and walked that road. There's a brand new gas pipe there. There's water. I saw a couple of catch basins. You gotta have the real estate,
That, the water main project that we're looking at now, we ran through that. It's where are we putting what? There's so much stuff in the roads.
Yeah.
Just trying to find the real estate to work with. And then again, now something else comes down the road later, and
Yep.
you've got more things in the way, or even 30 years from now when none of us are here and they're saying, oh crap, why do we have 2 mains and we got to replace that one? They must have had a reason they had 2 of them here.
Right.
But
All right, so I threw a preliminary number on there based on what we're recommending for improvements now.
If we hold off a year, that'll probably go down, right?
You would think that these numbers would tail off soon, but
Use opera money.
we could have, if there was anything.
Get Build Back Better money.
I guess that is the question, is how quickly do you feel you need to move forward? Because I know the moratorium is on your agenda later on as well.
Grants, forgive this SRF stuff.
Could you get an SRF grant for this?
SRF's a loan.
It's a loan, yeah.
Yeah,
PEF was just due like a month ago, so we're pretty far away on the clock right now.
Is there any grants out there with all this infrastructure stuff?
Most of the money is being fed through the SRF program. The
that's how the
other,
feds are, yeah.
the other option, but I think you're
Read that today.
just over 10,000 population as a community, so you don't qualify for USDA.
Has that been confirmed with USDA? Has anyone?
I'm pretty sure if
Okay.
you're over 10, you don't qualify
Well-
for USDA.
Is the population, is the Seward population substantially less?
Yes.
Yes.
It is, but I think the USDA goes by the town's population. The USDA is looking at, what the value of the town, how much the town has to contribute.
I don't think Dudley would qualify. You only have one zip code, correct?
Right.
Like, like if there was 2 zip codes, perhaps, but I think you're your own census designation.
I only ask, so.
I
whether-
understand, if
whether
you're
or
only
not-
serving a small area, then you might qualify, but that's not how USDA.
Yeah, some people, some places get out of it if their population, say 11,000, but they have a sewer district that's only 6,000. And it's set up and the taxes and everything are set up differently, then they sometimes slide in.
And I think that's typically a sewer district that is, it's
Not part of the
not
town.
part of the town. It's like Auburn Water District there.
Yep.
They're not associated with the town. That's,
All right.
USDA has been talking about raising the 10,000 limit, but it hasn't gone anywhere.
What does USDA stand for?
United States Department of Agriculture.
Agriculture,
Yeah,
okay.
Rural Development Program.
Is the 3.1 all in, like from right now till finish estimate?
Yeah, so
That's with the TV and the engineering of it?
that's design,
that's-
construction, and then engineering during construction.
So less our current study.
That's what the middle section will be in.
That's what the middle section being lined, that's basically the price for the recommendations. And that's, subject to change if we, once we start scratching deeper into this and looking at, we have to use the data we had available, which was the metered event. Now we have to go deeper with that and see what does the 5-year storm look like. DEP, when you're trying to eliminate SSOs, they want you to be sizing pipe based on the 5-year storm event. They changed that recently. It used to be a 1-year storm event, all right? And that event that the meter saw was still less than a 1-year storm event, all right? So the scope could evolve on the 5-year storm because we have to basically run what that capacity analysis looks like.
It's important too to realize that since those numbers that he used in here, we just did an I&I project.
Just
The I&I,
Upstream.
so let's hope that the whole lot of pipelining that we did up on the hill
True.
is going to decrease
So
this,
that's-
but how much,
That's one thing,
we wouldn't know unless we did
should
another
they get
study.
updated flow meter data?
unfortunately, we know it didn't do enough. because of
Correct.
the
Has one
SSO.
event.
We'd have to go
Correct,
after that.
it's probably, we know there's a problem, like you
But
said.
Bob, you said like 3.1 estimate, but Bob, you're also saying mow lining replacement all the way. Basically,
No,
right?
no, they were talking about, there was discussion at one of the last meetings about one of the sections of pipe that's really bottlenecking things, running a parallel
Oh,
pipe
yeah,
to
yeah,
it.
yeah.
I'm saying,
Run a parallel
instead of
pipe.
running a parallel pipe and using this as the primary flow, and if it exceeds the capacity, it would go over the overflow pipe. I'm not for that. I think we need to fix the problem instead of just kind of make a Band-Aid.
Yeah, so that concept disregards creating a problem downstream. It just solves that first segment.
The
problem.
intermediate, the
Yeah,
spot.
now you're sending 2 MGD down to this section that we're saying line, it's never seen 2 MGD in its life. And it's gonna be popping up, it's gonna be popping sewer covers.
And I still have an issue with DEP's thing on using a 5-year plan, because we shouldn't be using a 5-year plan, because we should be eliminating the I&I and doing it on design capacity, but I won't win that argument with David either, so.
The other layer is do you want to chase any more inflow that's coming into
I
the
think
system?
that's key. I think we should be focusing on some I&I.
I agree.
I think that's a bigger, I think we have a chance at resolving some of the issue in order to release a moratorium if we put one in, quicker with I&I work than main replacement work. Some of the main obviously needs to be replaced, but I think if you're looking at opening up to some of the development,
Even if we did the I&I study, and, get rid of some I&I, we're still gonna have to
these issues
get
still
the readings
exist, but.
of what the flow is with the.
Right, but if you look at the chart from the standard flow, it's the storms that are killing us. It's the storm flow.
The storms.
If we can eliminate the issues with the stormwater getting into the sewer, that gives us time to go through and come up with a replacement program. You need to have something in place. You gotta kind of have like a 20-year master plan and say, all right, here's all our infrastructure. We're on the sewer asset management. So that program should identify the entire system, condition, age, what it's gonna cost to replace it, and what we need to do, and we should be able to plan out over, say, a 20-year period, what upgrades need to be done. But critical to that, in our current issue, we need to resolve the I&I stuff. I mean, I agree, it all needs to be upgraded to the proper sizes. I don't know if I agree with DEP's 5-year plan, but
What I'm saying is
contradict
that we could,
themselves.
for us to lift their moratorium, is we gotta know the flows.
And the neighborhoods.
Part of that, I mean, if you're gonna do further I&I work, the first stage of it is metering. So you're gonna meter stuff. I would recommend cameraing this section to begin with. Just, we didn't do any of that during the initial I&I?
We did segments. I would say if you wanted to engage more inflow, this is more inflow, not infiltration, because it's not necessarily groundwater. It's more like sump pump investigations, yard drains, roof leaders.
And those are critical. I mean, those are huge to this stuff. Do you guys, do you look for sump pumps when you do meter changes and stuff?
Oh, I do.
It's on my form. You have to check if there is.
Yeah, he does. Ryan's
I
got
think
it.
that's
Stay on that stuff.
critical, because even if you upsize the pipes, we still have the issue that we're paying for sewer.
Yes.
We're paying Webster for all this water that people are pumping out of sump pumps that they can pump off to the ground. So I think the I&I is more critical to me than a lot of the replacement, understanding that some of the replacement needs to happen anyway. Because it's poorly set up. You got bigger pipe going, smaller pipe.
Oh, yeah.
And I see the slope on just this front page. I mean, you almost got a 10% slope. I know you say you get better flow with a steeper slope, but that's not always the case. You know, I mean, yes, you'll get faster flow, but if you have low flow, all the solids settle out,
Yes.
water goes down, now you're creating blockages. So you got to get the proper slow. I don't know why they didn't put some drop manholes in here.
Yeah, the diameter changes is like,
Yeah.
it's like they ran out of pipe and said, well, we got 10 inch.
What else do we
let's put
got?
that in.
Yeah, go get the other stuff.
You're probably not that far from
Oh,
the
I
truth.
know.
What'd they give us today?
Yeah, somebody had some 10-inch pipe in their backyard.
Can we get a full-size map with the collection system and directions of flow? Because you're showing small parts of it here, and you outline the stuff that you see as the problems, but how many pump stations are going into those pipes? So, I mean, you're showing where it's backing up in the pipe and you're seeing the flows, but there's side streets or pump stations that could be contributing, that could be causing the backup, and maybe we need to be looking in a different area. I work better if I see the whole picture.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Don't we have that in the
That was one map I had, but not of the sewer, just a little longer than I.
not just water, yeah.
We have your
Has a-
sewer map in
he has a
GIS, so
map,
we
but
can
it's-
print it to a large scale.
Yeah, if you can print a larger copy just so that we can.
Well, we gave you a map, I think, of the sewer diagram of the sewer.
I think
Something in.
we have it as part of the SFCS work that we've done for you guys. We'll print that and get that to you.
6 or 7 years ago.
Yep, 'cause I seem to remember seeing that,
Should we get the data layer? Do we have that? The GIS data layer, so we can look at it on a map?
I remember looking at it in my neighborhood where it flows down the hill to be pumped back up the same street.
I don't know, were those included when we did the program? Did you have a?
So I believe we have a data layer we could give you, but it's not tied to any town GIS system. It's your own water GIS.
I don't want to tie it to the town, I'd rather keep it in-house.
Yep.
I don't like when the town starts taking things with critical infrastructure and start putting it up on websites and stuff. I've seen that before, it drives me crazy. Webster's is all on there, I could show you all the points that you want to attack Webster's system, it's retarded.
Okay,
12 to 10.
I guess we've got some some reading and some,
Some studying, some homework.
to figure out our
The price that you put in there
plan
was
forward.
design, construction, and engineering.
About $10 million to,
Yeah, for the recommendations that we're showing right now.
I'm sure there's.
Yeah, that's our, what we think it's gonna take to do that. I was working on pulling a proposal together for this, and I decided to pump the brakes and wait and talk to you guys first on, how you guys were digesting this and what you were potentially feeling in terms of next steps,
that's, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's gonna have to be done.
Yeah, if we don't do it, it's gonna be somebody.
If we don't do it now, it's gonna be done
Sooner or later,
later, and
face
it's
it.
gonna be,
Yeah.
and it's gonna just cost more, because nothing's getting cheaper.
What's the right option?
So to
So
do
to
the,
consider this, and then maybe consider the, I&I, that last I&I study told us the individual parts of town.
Right,
We picked the biggest areas to repair. Were there other areas that were close? I mean, I can't remember all of it. That were
There were
like
no
close
other,
third.
yeah, there were no other recommendations for like lining.
Yeah.
But it's almost like iterative process now that you've done it. The next best thing is to put meters back in to see where you're sitting right now.
Yeah, okay.
so as part of the design, you would need to do the meter flow. Or are you just saying you want to move forward with what you've come up with, just with the data you had?
I'd like to digest the data we have. I think what we have is enough to correlate to that 5-year storm, and then confirm the recommendations or modify the recommendations based on what that 5-year storm event.
Are you also using a 5-year storm prior to the I&I work that we've done?
Yeah, you're using data
Yeah,
that's,
so I am, in that I am assuming that the I&I work that we've done is not gonna have significant impacts to flow metering if we were to put more flow meters out there. Based on my history in the industry and chasing II, my experience has been that lining isn't gonna give you as much as, oh my God, we just found 4 catch basins over here that are connected to the sewer that no one's known about.
Yeah, the lining work captured
Lining catches the
infiltration.
I&I, the infiltration, but we think the real problem is sump pumps, roof leaders,
Oh, yeah.
possible
Yeah, direct
catch basins
inflow.